Hello and welcome to the Sweaty, the Farmer and the News, the best and heavily opinionated sources of gaming news everywhere. This is our new weekly show where we discuss some of the most important news in the gaming world. I am the long-name gamer as the Sweaty.
And I am Lucho the Farmer. Thanks for coming together this week to talk about the most relevant news.
The most relevant news. So, in the news, we have today Method affiliates distanced from the organization after sexual harassment allegations. There is a new Diablo 4 quarterly update, and Cyberpunk 2077 did a big demo showcase. And we're gonna see some impressions from the media on these weeks. So this is the docket on the news in this episode. Any quotation before we start, Lucho, about what we are aiming with now, dividing the news apart to our audience to explain why are we doing this now?
You should go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, so we kind of figure out that the most of our audience hear our news and then stops and then goes about their days and then comes back and listen to the rest of the podcast. And so if that's the general thing that people do, it's better for us to divide it and then put the news, because we realize that we spend a lot of time inside the podcast talking about the news before talking about the main topics that we discuss in the game design analysis. So might as well cover the news and offer you the choice if you want to just see the main topics and listen to us about the game design, or if you just want to hear our opinions and thoughts about the generalist news in the week. I think that's the spirit, right?
Yep.
Of why are we doing this now?
Yep. We want to offer you more options.
Yes, correct. So we always want to give you, the listener or viewer, as many options for you to enjoy our content as possible. So without further ado, let's get on with this episode of the news. So, for the faint of heart, there was some crazy harassment news everywhere on the net, but one of the biggest scandals now, because of the nature of what happened, is the organization Method, that is a big team of World of Warcraft that does the warfare's raid races, and they have a bunch of streamers and content creators affiliated with their brand, have been allegedly for years covering accusations of sexual harassment inside their organization, right?
Yep.
And recently, some of the victims were went full public and accused them on social media platforms and bring a bunch of stuff to the light, and stuff ensued. And it was a big disaster, because the most important things, apparently the higher ups were covering it, so everybody knew, but the public didn't knew, and there were accusations before, and they apparently handled it, but they did not really handle it. What do you think of this, Lucho?
Do you want to explain better what happened?
You explain better. You have the timeline more clearly than me.
So, I don't know if a bunch, but a couple of women came forward.
Yeah.
With some accusations against Method Josh.
Yes, correct.
Which was one of Method's killers on the red team. He was basically a big World of Warcraft streamer. And after they came forward with them, with their stories, a bunch of people started asking questions about what happened and stuff like that, and it came to light that these accusations are not new, and that the organization knew with all this misconduct for a long time, and then they were, if not covering it up, at least doing nothing about it, which is the same basically.
Yeah.
And they were also like, whenever they were confronted with these all allegations by like members of the WoW community, they denied, like said no, everything is okay.
Yeah.
Even though they knew it was not okay.
Correct.
So all this behavior came to light in the last week, and that ensued that a lot of content creators, streamers, YouTubers, and just like members of the different teams are distancing themselves from the organization, as well as multiple partners.
Yeah.
That is more or less what happened in the last week with Method.
Yeah. So that was the whole shebang. And
that is more or less. It's there is
more details and stuff.
more detail, but that's pretty much like everything can be summarized, and then apparently there was like an institutional culture of covering up allegations of sexual misconduct and sexual assault amongst like the higher ups in the organization.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the rough thing about it. Like, they just like this, because of all that came into light. Now they just destroy the brand because they're being like super irresponsible with the allegations, and they did like, they just behave bad about it all the time. So would you say that the brand is like totally destroyed?
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah, they deserve to, like, because of promoting that culture of covering up sexual harassment.
Yeah.
I think they deserve the brand to like disappear, especially from the higher ups of Method. And like, you feel up because of the people who were attached to the Method organization, but they didn't have any say, or they didn't have any, like, I'm talking about like the side streamers and the other people, content creators who were like collaborating with Method, or were working under like some kind of contract to do content for them, or to produce stuff, because you have to take this with a grain of salt of like, not everybody associated with Method was in cahoots with all these sexual harassment cover-ups and etc., right? Because that's the thing, like, people associated with it that has nothing to do with this scandal are gonna kind of suffer from it, right? But you have to
I really don't think anyone is suffering from it. Like, I feel like most people do understand that if the content creators and just like general players are distancing themselves from Method.
Yeah, but I'm saying this so people don't generalize that everybody that was working with Method was very bad. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But this was one of the biggest stories, because apparently apparently this week everybody came up with like sexual harassment problems across the industry, right? We have Twitch starting to ban a bunch of streamers accused of sexual harassment for a long time, and they start like killing the channels. I'm Spoon, Wolfie, Blizzard, DDR, Code, Watch TV. All those were accused of sexual misconduct and strictly banned from Twitch, and they're being long-time partners. And they've been issued permanent suspension out of the platform, and their channels have been deleted promptly. So my question here is this just like results from the Method scandal, or just like timing in terms that the Twitch just like started approaching this more, which is good for Twitch. This more strict harassment accusation policy to just ban content creators straight out of the platform. What do you think? Think it's a coincidence?
It is probably a coincidence.
Yeah. But
I'd hope so.
I'm glad that they're actually like cleaning house in this point for Twitch. Feels so, yeah. And on top of that, we have one of the biggest bans in the history of Twitch with Dr. Disrespect apparently being totally banned without explanation so far. Like, I was reading something this morning and they issue an official statement, but they didn't say the reason of why he was banned from the platform. They say that it was like because he violated some terms of services. So legal bargain, but no reason why they ban it from the platform from one day in the middle of one of their streams. They actually cut off his stream and deleted his channel like in the span of like half an hour, something like that. So what do you think about like misconducts and like this new like streaming culture and everything else that is happening?
But it's fine.
That is fine?
Yeah. I mean, if people misbehave, you should ban.
Yeah. You should be super strict. Especially in the era of influencers that we're right now. It's like the spotlight is not for everybody, and if you are using your influence or using your platform wrong, you should be punished very harshly. In the past, there's been like some stuff that Twitch and other stream platforms has overlooked, like showing too much skin and kind of allegations of sexual harassment that people has overlooked from streamers, and has been happening. But now is the time where the hammer just dropped for everybody, and that's good. That's healthy for the medium, for us content creators and streamers, that we are held accountable to what we do with our platforms and what we do outside of our platforms. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any thoughts about all these situations, Lucho?
I mean,
before we move on,
it should have come sooner. It somehow feels late, but
yeah, I think that's the thing, right? It's like, why would you take so long to do something so simple as to be morally accountable in your platforms? But sometimes the answer to that is business, and because a lot of these guys, like, I'm not talking purely about the method thing, but a lot of these guys have like big platforms and big followers, and they bring big money to the Twitch platforms and the other streaming platforms, but something's gotta give at some point, right?
Yeah, but it just looks worse if you, or not you, but if they take time in taking action. That looks worse than just being cautious and taking proper action when things happen. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely looks worse that you're taking this long to actually start taking action against, because it gives like it absolutely like shows where your real interest as a company are, in that maybe you're like just obligated to do certain stuff when you're obligated to do it, and that's not your moral background. But it's better late than never, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. Not really in this case.
Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't conform to that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you always should like try to. It's a shame because the the sad part of this is like people had to go like full public and expose themselves to the harshness of the internet for
that is
these actions to be taken, right?
that is a question of like whole like the way that we culturally handle sexual misconduct allegations and stuff like that is just completely effed up.
In general,
Because all that this is showing is that, and like some of the victims that came forward said that they went to authorities, they went to platforms, they went to organizations before going public,
yeah,
and that they were basically ignored. And basically, what this is showing is that they felt that the only way to make their voices heard was to expose themselves to scrutiny of the internet, which no one should have to.
yeah.
So that is speaks of a greater problem of how we as a society handle these things.
Yeah. That is true. It shouldn't be like that, but that's a bigger discussion to have. Anyway, so we absolutely appreciate all these actions taken and taking all this trash out of bad people misbehaving.
I
hopefully the
hope
future is quick. What?
becomes more. I hope Twitch becomes more strict and everyone is more aware of all these behaviors in the future.
Yeah, hopefully, yes. Alright, moving on. We're gonna move to our next news of the day. It is the Diablo 4 quarterly update of June 2020. Amazing news from the team. They talk about a little bit about how they do playtest the points in Diablo 2, and then they spend all this time just finishing one area and taking all the data of that area and playtesting the area and see all the thing, and they give us like a lookout from behind the scenes of how do they do quick playtest for all the areas in Diablo 3, which is fantastic. The game is looking fantastic, and then they show some art from the pre-alpha department of what they work in terms of enemies. They talk a little bit about how the storytelling will work. They talk about how they want to feel the multiplayer of the game. They say that they experienced that in some areas there were a lot of players, and it feel like it didn't kept the terror or isolation kind vibe of the game. So they are limited areas of how many players can be at one instance, and they say like, oh yeah, if you go to this town, which is supposed to be populated, there you will find a lot of other PvP players, but if you go to the other instance, we will reduce your encounters with other players, so you can feel that you are like, you can have that sense of exploration and dreadfulness and loneliness, and like the war is a dangerous place in Diablo 4, because they were comparing it with Diablo 3 when you have those interactions all the time with players when you're going to a party, so the war doesn't feel that threatening to you, and that kind of like was what they're talking about in the update. How they plan to do open world, and they showing us some heat maps of where players are congregating more to do all this research about how to manage player population. They talk about the mounts, which they were talking about flying mounts, that the flying mount, that they don't want the mount system to make the world irrelevant. And they were giving an example about like World of Warcraft, where they said that sometimes in World of Warcraft, when you get your flying mount, you stop kind of soaking the world in and like not exploring as much, and they don't want to lose that, so they're gonna like kind of limit it how much you can do in the mounts with the mounts in Diablo 4. And that's kind of rough about what they say in the update. They talk a little bit of items, but the items doesn't look that promising. But they say that they're still working a lot of it in the items, and the purpose, the feedback they want from this post is mainly on the war and how the multiplayer should work in the world.
I'm pretty sure the itemization is still in early steps.
Yeah.
Early stages.
Super early stages, I will say. For the itemization
thing. That's not surprising at all.
So what do you think of the philosophy of multiplayer and open worldness and like finding other players?
Nah. Part of me is like just is thinking that they should just let the game evolve on its own. Like, it just manipulating the population of areas by like sharding players into different instances.
Yeah,
it's just an artificial way of making the world feel dangerous instead of the world actually being dangerous.
So you won't fix that. So you won't fix the problem of how to keep the world feeling dangerous by limiting the amount of players.
No,
because I imagine what the intention is like, we have this dungeon, right? And there is like a powerful enemy in this dungeon. But if 10 people can walk up to the dungeon and just farm it and sit there in the dungeon, then the powerful enemy and dangerous enemy that we put inside the dungeon that you're exploring becomes irrelevant because there is a bunch of dudes just sitting there farming him constantly.
Then there is something wrong with the difficulty.
But it happens in World of Warcraft, doesn't it?
Sure, but like for current content, I mean, World of Warcraft doesn't feel dangerous, but like that's the natural progression of an expansion.
Yeah,
like, it feels dangerous at the beginning, and it just starts getting less and less dangerous.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But and that's why they are instancing a bunch of places, right? It's like it's like if
what?
you mentioned yes, that's why they're instancing a bunch of players because it's like
what?
Imagine if the raid was part of the open world.
Yeah, but the instances are something completely different. Like,
but that's what they're doing. They're taking part of the open worlds and transforming into instances because of the concentrated traffic.
Stupid. If they are gonna work with the instances, they should design them from the beginning. Like they shouldn't be just parts of the world. They should just be things designed on their own to work as instances.
Yeah. Yes. They are transformed.
Those two things are two completely different problems. Do you want like Diablo 3? It doesn't have instances.
Diablo 3, yeah, it does. The greater reefs are instances.
Sure, but the reefs are, but you don't access them through the world. Like those, you just go to a portal.
Correct. Yes.
But that's not what they're talking about.
No, because they want a kind of a blend. I think they want to kind of get closer to World of Warcraft, where you go to like portals to enter instances. But they want to feel that more organic without like having the portal there. You just walk into the thing and you are in an instance. You know what I mean?
Sure. You just take away the loading screen.
Correct.
Who cares about that? Like that's
the intention.
Like you still know when you're in an instance. That doesn't change how the world feels.
You still know that you're in an instance. Well, they're trying to like. Well, that's the intention. That's the intention. Like, I try to handle it more naturally. That you walk into it and you don't feel.
If that's not the point. The point is they want to keep the world relevant.
Yeah.
Instances are probably not the solution for that.
Then what will be the solution for you?
make the world actually dangerous. Enemies being actually difficult and well tuned for the progression.
All right.
Make enemies that are never easy to kill.
Make enemies that are never easy to kill. Well, that depends on what fantasy are you selling, right?
That is the Diablo fantasy.
That is
Diablo is not a power fantasy.
There you go. Yeah, that's the point. That's that Diablo is not a power fantasy.
Yeah, but that's we're not discussing that. We know.
Yeah, but like the thing is, like, it's difficult to balance that type of thing if you have so many, like, if you have so many players running around, it's difficult to balance that thing in the open world.
You scale the enemies according to amount of players
inside, but it's easier to balance that if that is an instance with a cap of players and or it has modifiers or whatever. So they're kind of doing that. The thing is, like, they're doing seamlessly, like they're doing seamlessly instances inside an open world. Right?
Yeah, which I don't like. That's what I'm saying.
You don't like.
I think that is a lazy solution.
But why? It happened in World of Warcraft too. Like, again.
No,
like,
it doesn't happen in World of Warcraft.
You do have instances where you're gonna fight a world boss, right?
No, when you fight a world boss, the boss is in the world.
Yes.
There's no instance associated to a boss.
Oh, okay, but like you have to kind of like organize or join a raid or whatever to actually kill.
That's different.
And you kind of phase out between the instances of the world.
No, you don't phase out in an instance. That is not how it works. You get phased out to a shard where the raid leader is.
All right. That makes sense. Okay.
It's not an instance. It's in the world. It's just that you get moved to a server where the leader is at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Now.
Yeah. But the world bosses are just there. Like they're not instances.
Fair enough.
Like if you're fighting the boss and you leave the party, like after a while you'll phase back to your own instance and the boss will be there.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the approaches they're taking, but there's plenty of time for them to like change to something else, I guess. To keep making the open world relevant after the campaign, because they're talking about the after the campaign.
Sure.
Like, and they're saying that the campaign is your own instance, and then you don't walk into open world until you don't finish the campaign.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, all right, that's fine.
It's fine. They want to give you like a solo
kind of experience
for
like
the story.
Yeah.
That is fine.
Yeah. So, and they apparently completed and tested the entire zone of the open world, which is very interesting. And the other thing is, they're talking about having a mix between try to utilize for the most part 95% in-game game engine cutscenes, more than pre-rendered cutscenes, and fully integrated with the world. So the goal is, if you are wearing certain set or items on the game, that to try to like 95% of the cutscenes or the story moments, you are wearing whatever you're wearing in your character, etc., to be showcased inside the actual cinematic moment of the story.
That is really not that important, but sure.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like a touch of you feeling immersed into the game, right?
It depends on the story that they're telling.
Yeah, the story has to be good, right?
No, not only that. Like, it depends how you're telling the story that you want to tell. It depends on the perspective that you're using to tell the story.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
It is. How do you use this storytelling devices that you have?
Yeah. If well used is interesting, like to see yourself with your gear and blah blah blah.
It is. It depends.
It depends.
Like it's not necessary, in my opinion, to have an immersive experience.
All right. So for you, it's not like it's not relevant if your character is shown with whatever gear he has or not in the middle of a cutscene or whatever.
I mean, it's not necessary for the immersion. I don't know. Like for example, Destiny 2 has cutscenes where you are walking around in whatever you're
wearing. Yes, correct.
Engaging, you can argue that it is not. You have games like, I don't know, StarCraft, for example, where you don't even have a thing to show. Like, there is no you in game.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
And I can argue that story is way more interesting and way more engaging than Destiny 2.
Yeah.
So, like having the gimmick of having my avatar shown around in the cutscenes is that important? In my opinion, is not. But then it depends how you're gonna tell the story. It depends what kind of perspective on the story you're taking. Depends of many things.
So what were you saying is like they better craft a good story before like they better give priority of crafting a good story before like all this technology pushing cutscenes, because all that is pointless without a good story.
It is a gimmick.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Yeah, there you go. All right. But I think so far this development is good. It's been promising. Like they're being very transparent. They're being asking for a lot of feedback of everything they're doing.
That's all good and all.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're doing things wrong. I'm just critical of the decisions.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, and here's the example about like the instancing thingy. Dungeons and key story moments are always private. Just the player or the party that they are in. Once story moments are complete and towns are turned into social hubs. You run into a few people in town, while on the road you sometimes run into a player, here and there. And then finally, if you went to a location where a war event is happening, you will see a larger congregation of players trying to defend against an attack by a cannibal horde or trying to take down a war boss, etc. There you go. That's the intention.
The town thing, it's fine. Like that, who cares?
Yeah.
Like the open world stuff, it's more tricky to me.
Fair enough.
Because it can. Like, let's imagine that you see. It's probably won't go like this. Like, you're fighting a world boss and you see a bunch of people and you kill them, and then you see a bunch of people like walking away and just disappearing, like phasing out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always eerie. Hopefully they do it like more elegantly than that. Like they walk out into horses and then...
but also it's like, like I was fighting with 20 people and now I'm alone.
Yeah.
That is disconnecting. Like just...
Fair enough.
That's what I'm saying, that handling that is... That's what I'm not a fan of, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Fair enough. All right. Any last thoughts about the progress in Diablo 4?
It's slowly coming together. The optimization is really early. I'm not surprised how that. Yeah. This is not coming anytime soon. So yeah, but
just
keep working on it.
I insist. I'm very happy that this development is being taken very openly with the community. Right.
It is an option. I don't know if it is the right option.
Let's
hope it works for Diablo 4.
Correct. And finally, this last week we have a big showcase of the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt Red that is coming now on September. So they've been delayed a couple of times, and they had a big event where they showcased a longer demo than the one they showcased before. At closed doors in E3 last year. 2 streamers, influencers, and a bunch of selected people. And so far, the consensus between all these reviewers and people who watch is that the game it looks good. Like the visuals are beautiful, top notch, ray tracing technology, etc., etc. Then the shooting is very good. That was a big concern. And then there is like some odd things in some places about like they're talking about like a car that you crash your car and then it reappear, like very gamey like. That you can what?
Like I have no problem with like gaming. Like,
yeah. And they said that the hacking kind of feels meh for what they could experience overall. That it wasn't that entertaining as they expected, but then again they said that the caveat that is very early hacking, so maybe that system could be better. That the social interactions were very good, and you can you have a lot of options. That some things has been stripped down, and then the majority of things that they play, like at least on the first hour or hour and a half, was very on rails. In terms of what you can do and what you can choose in the game, but overall everybody was very positive about it. That all the systems that were put in showcase were very good, and that the game is it's as good as they were expecting to be, but it's not perfect. I think that's the thing.
No, I won't believe that.
You what?
I won't believe that.
You won't believe that it's as good as expected, but it's not perfect. So are you gonna see this game? Are you gonna test it? Are you gonna play it in some shape or form? Are you interested in this game in any shape or form? You weren't interested in the Witchers.
Not really.
And you probably are not interested in this big. The overall thing is is looking very good. It's looking very promising, and the stealth feel a little bit lacking too, but it feels super entertaining, which is the thing. Like it's not the most deep, and it could be like part and part. It could be like you just see the base systems, and it could be more interesting when you like expand more in those systems and go through the things that you can do. But for what was showcased in the demo was the majority of base systems. So the overall thing is like the hacking feel kind of boring. The stealth feel very gamey, very cool to do, and the shooting feel very good. But it feels super snappy. So it feels super that you will help a lot at aiming at the enemies, right? The thing is like what I want from this game is a deep RPG experience, I think. More than if the shooting is good or the hacking is interesting or the stealth is super good. And that's it. I think that's the thing, right?
I think this game is gonna be front loaded.
You think this game is gonna be front loaded? It's gonna have no meat?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I insist. So far, the CD Projekt Red record is very good. So
this game looks like style over substance.
Style over substance is Lucho. Fair enough. I don't know. I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good for what it is. And again, I believe in CD Projekt Red. I believe in CD Projekt Red, and all the products that they have done for me are very good.
This game is gonna disappoint.
Oh my god. Put it in a stop! Lucho said that Cyberpunk 2070 is gonna be disappointing.
It is impossible to live to expectation.
Well, yes, that is true. I think it's impossible to live to the level of expectation of these games, but apparently...
That means that it's gonna be disappointing.
Apparently the early demos are very promising for that.
Early demos mean nothing.
Alright, early demos mean nothing? Nothing means nothing?
early demos mean nothing.
Uh,
Like if your game is front loaded, you have a mode that shows the beginning, and then it feels
but
amazing.
the beginning
The
it was
game is amazing.
it was like a 6-hour demo, 5-hour demo, something like that.
Okay, it's still like it could be at the first 30 hours are amazing,
All right.
and after that there's nothing. So is that a good game?
No.
So that's what I'm saying. Like it's
not a good game.
it could be completely front loaded.
Fair enough. It could be hopefully not. Hopefully it looks very beautiful. Hopefully
People get what they want from the game. I don't.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a good experience. And I think that's it for our news, my friend. That is it.
I think that's it. Yeah. That's all for this week's news. With the Sweaty and the Farmer. My name is Lucho, and you can find me on Twitter at LuzGPolanco.
And I am the Long Name Gamer, and you can find me on Twitter at the Long Name Gamer and on Twitch on twitch.tv/LongNameGamerTV, where I stream Mondays to Fridays. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, follow, star, kiss it, recommend it, and do everything social that helps the Sweaty the Farmer and the news. See you next time. Bye.